Kentucky Democrat Andy Beshear has claimed victory over Republican Governor Matt Bevin, who was boosted by President Trump in that red state on the eve of the election.
If you lose, they're going to say Trump suffered the greatest defeat in the history of the world. You can't let that happen to me.
Last night, the election ended. It ended, and it's time to move forward with a smooth transition that we are here to do so that we can do the people's business.
From Kentucky to my hometown in the Philadelphia suburbs to Virginia, Democrats did have a big night, winning control of the Virginia state legislature. They ran against the president, but also against GOP efforts to block the expansion of Medicaid. Jeff, you were talking to voters all week on the campaign trail. What did Tuesday tell us about 2020?
Tuesday tells us basically the same story from the 2018 midterms, is that there is trouble in the Republican brand and among the president's supporters in the suburbs of America. Look at the suburbs of Cincinnati, of Memphis, as Philadelphia, of Pittsburgh, as you were saying, certainly the suburbs here in Washington of Virginia. There is a Republican erosion. I think the Kentucky governor's race, yes, the president went down there at the end. He probably actually helped him a little bit, not enough, of course. Governor Bevin had a variety of issues. He lost because he picked a fight with the teachers' unions and a variety of other things over state pensions. But I think, off-year elections, we tend to read too much into them. But one thing we can read into is the fact of what is happening in the suburbs of America. The Trump campaign realizes this. That's why they are motivating their own supporters. But I think the president, in and of himself, he knows that there are certain places he will not be able to go as much in 2020. But the suburbs are going to be the story. Gun control and other issues, it was a central issue.
One place the president is not really going to be able to go is Virginia. Virginia came out of these elections as a solidly Democratic state. It was a Democratic sweep. It completed the transition of Virginia from red to purple to blue. And as for Bevin, I covered Bevin's race in 2015. Bevin was Trump before Trump. He came in as an outsider. He was brash. He said he was beholden to no party. And he made Republicans, in fact, very nervous. And I do have to wonder if part of the backlash against Bevin was against his personal style. As Jeff said, he picked a fight with the teachers. I think he called them thugs or something.
He was very critical.
Exactly. And so you do wonder, will voters get turned off to Trump's personal style? Will they turn against him the way Kentuckians?
Let me ask you, Jess, about that, because Cheryl brings up a good point. Inside the White House, when they look at Kentucky, do they see Bevin as just a case that's an island in and of itself? Or do they see some potential problems, maybe losing some political capital with Republicans? As Republicans look at impeachment, they also look at Kentucky losing in a red state in a gubernatorial race.
I see Bevin as more of an isolated incident. I did talk to folks in the White House who said the results in Virginia and how that was trending do not good for the president. Now, the points they make on the other side, I think, are worth hearing. They say, there are a lot of Trump voters who don't come out in off-year elections, who don't come out in special elections. They only care about Trump, and they think they can get a lot of those people out. They also say the president doesn't have an opponent yet, and one of the things that he was effective in 2016 is defining his opponent, demonizing his opponent. He went into Election Day with an approval rating below 40% and still won. Now, whether he can recreate all of that, I don't know, but those are points worth considering.
But those points get muddled up by a lot of this impeachment discussion. Let me read you a quote from Scott Reed, the political strategist for the Chamber of Commerce. There was a lot of positive news around President Trump's governing on the economy and regulations and judges. It seems to be overwhelmed by the drama. That was to the Post earlier this week. You think about the stock market hitting a record high this week, progress on the China trade talks, yet real problems in the suburbs. What is the White House doing to address the suburban slide?
Yeah, I mean, there are people telling President Trump if he could just stick to the economy, stick to those good points right now, he could do very well. His problem is that he, as you know, goes off and talks about other things. There's the impeachment, he's getting mad at people. If he could stick to the economy, he's going to probably announce something on China in the coming weeks. They feel like that they could, have some, that could get them somewhere. You've also seen them talk a little bit about issues like gun control, thinking maybe they could use that, and then in the end, he didn't go there.
Let's pause on gun control.
Yeah.
You think about who was one of the biggest advocates for gun control in 2018, Michael Bloomberg, former New York mayor. Yeah. Now he sees his party moving too far to the left. He's jumping in the race, Jeff. What does it mean for the Democratic contest?
It is a big unknown. I mean, there's no question he's surprised a lot of people. Of course, he has said repeatedly he was not going to run. He filed his paperwork in Alabama late Friday. The reason Alabama, of course, they have the early filing deadline. Look for him to do the same in New Hampshire a week from today. We still don't know if he is running, but he's planning to do so. He's also, though, going to skip the first 4 early voting states: Iowa, New Hampshire, Nevada, South Carolina. So I do not hear a lot of clamoring among Democratic primary voters for Mike Bloomberg. There are a lot of people on his payroll who look at the math of this and say he's exactly the person who could beat President Trump. But they have a lot of data because of the gun control efforts that he funded in the Virginia suburbs and other things. So we can't count him out, but we do not know if he'll be the right messenger in a Democratic primary. It is really, his candidacy is hinging on Joe Biden completely collapsing. And that hasn't happened yet in the eyes of voters. It has for some strategists, but he's been amazingly resilient here. It helped Elizabeth Warren this week as well.
And Mike Bloomberg's not necessarily a natural campaigner. I mean, I covered New York City politics and watched him on the trail. He's not someone who lights up a crowd. He's not necessarily a exciting, enthusiastic
But he must
speaker.
see a path. He must see a path.
He's a technocrat, and I think he sees a path as, I'm 77 years old. I think my party is not heading in the right direction. I think these issues deserve more attention. If not now, when? If you talk to people around him, they don't necessarily see the path that he does. But Bloomberg, it seems like this is a last chance. Give it a go effort.
So 2 thoughts on that. First of all, do Democrats really want an old white man as their nominee? I mean, we're seeing those questions raised with Bernie Sanders, who had a heart attack, and questions about his health, with Joe Biden, questions about his acuity, whether he's lost a step. And the Democratic Party is moving toward a younger base, people of color, women.
And more liberal.
And more liberal, exactly that. So that's one thought. And my other thought was, if Bloomberg became the nominee, we'd have a Subway series, right?
I mean, who's not a New Yorker, it
Right.
seems, in American politics anymore? Does the White House sit back and go, they were maybe thinking about Senator Warren or Senator Sanders as the nominee, and now it could be Bloomberg? And what
I
does
don't
that
think
mean?
they think it's Bernie Sanders. All attention has been to Elizabeth Warren lately. I mean, they thought it was Joe Biden, as a lot of people did, and they felt like this whole situation with Ukraine and his fundraising has really pushed him out, and the person to look at is Elizabeth Warren, and they are really happy about that, obviously, because she's so progressive on the left. They feel like they can fight her and push back against her.
One thing it says above all, this race is much more unsettled than we think here in Washington. When you talk to voters, they want someone who can win. They don't know the answer to that question. So that's what Bloomberg does to this mix. He mixes all that up. So the next 3 months before the Iowa caucuses, 2.5 months, are fascinating because of the unsettled nature of this. 2/3 of people are willing to change their minds.
I think that's right. And I think you have a president who's also willing to, get in the mix and get his hands dirty early. And that's one of the things I'm watching as a White House correspondent over the next few months is, how does he try to shape these primaries? You have people around him who are saying, stay out, let the Democrats beat themselves up, let them have their internal warfare. But this is not a president who does that. And that's going to be the X factor.
Okay. It was wild news. Bloomberg maybe getting in, impeachment. What a week.